A string. And the D string. And the G. And the B. And the E. Okay. A few lessons ago we talked about the open E major chord and the open A major chord. And these chords were moved up the neck by barring with your index finger, and they're bar chords. And we had a look at them to show you how to move them up and down the neck. And we were talking about playing the full chord. And I mentioned that what a lot of heavy metal players do is to ignore the high strings and just to play the low 2 notes, and sometimes the low 3 notes. If you move those bar chords up and you're only going to play the low 2 notes, there's really no use in worrying about barring all the strings with the rest of your finger. So you can basically just curve your index finger around and curve your ring finger around and play those notes like that. A lot of heavy metal is written this way. The reason for it is that the musical relationship between those 2 notes is very strong. It's real powerful kind of sounding. A relationship like that is a little more, little tenser sounding, and it's kind of pretty sounding, which you really don't want it to be if it's heavy metal. Another type of a chord that a lot of those players use is called a 4th chord. This is called a 5th chord. The reason for that is that you're playing a root, and you're playing the 5th note of the scale along with that root. So do, re, mi, fa, sol. You're playing that 5th note, so it's called a 5th chord. If you play the root and the 4th note, it's called a 4th chord. And you really just play that with both strings with your index finger. And they're used in conjunction with one another. 4th, 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 and 5th. And sometimes 4th chords sound heavier than 5th chords do, just because they're a little stranger sounding. Another major technique that you have to develop to make things sound heavy is right-hand muting. And you have to use the fleshy part of your right hand and put it on the strings way, way at the back near the tailpiece, just as the strings are leaving the tailpiece. And you just want to rest your hand from on the strings to make the note go from that real open ringy sound to a real deadened sound like that. You can really hear that difference when you hear the amp dirty. There's a lot of different ways to come down on the string with your hand. If you flatten your hand out more, you'll tend to get a real after every note that you play. And a lot of times that's not good, but a lot of times you really want that because it does make the whole thing sound a lot heavier. When you pick those notes too, you can change the tone of them by hanging a little bit of the skin on your thumb over top the pick. And as soon as the pick leaves the string, if it touches the skin on your thumb, just real lightly. And if you do that with fretted notes on the higher strings, you'll get what are called harmonics. And those are all those squeaks and squawks and stuff that you hear people play. If you do them on the low strings, you'll get the same kind of harmonic, but because the note is lower, the whole feel of the harmonic is different, and it sounds real angry or something like that. And if you play a whole chord like that, the whole chord will sound like it's choking or something. You'll get a real at the beginning of each note, which again is another heavy thing to do. So I'll just run through, I'll just pull some chords out as I play them and let you hear how certain techniques like that can make the playing sound heavier. Through that, I was picking a lot of those notes and hanging the skin on my thumb over top to get those squawks. When I was playing fourth chords, they sound a little more dangerous or angry or something, like I said. Another thing I was doing was keeping that low E note constantly going, sort of like a metronome almost. Wherever you're not playing a chord and you stop, keep that low E note going. One thing that you want to do for sure if you want to make things sound heavy is to always have something being played. Overkill is the thing that you're looking for. And there's thrash metal, you know, there's that stuff, that real fast stuff, but you're gonna have to start out playing this stuff slow anyway. And the slower stuff is sometimes a lot more fun to play because there's some tension that builds in it because it is slow and you don't get to the next chord real quick. You can practice playing these chords in kind of a strange way. What you do is you just pick chords using those fifth chords or fourth chords. You just pick them totally at random and keep the tempo slow. Keep it about that fast. And you just play the chord as many times as you want, once or 5 times, and in your mind, just keep hearing that ticking of the metronome. And when you're not playing another chord, keep that open E string running. And you can always go back to that E chord. And the stranger the chords are, the more out of key they are. When you go to a chord and it's not in the right key, the heavier it'll sound. So if you play you're using sort of heavy metal techniques by muting and playing only the low 2 notes of the chord and playing that droning E string, but you're playing chords that you've heard a million times already in bluesier kind of stuff. You want to get away from those typical progressions when you're playing this heavier stuff and pick real strange sounding chords. Those chords are just picked at random, and the first few times you listen to a lot of heavy metal stuff like that, you might think that the chords were picked at random too, which they may have been, I don't know. So to practice that stuff, the only thing that you have to hear in your head is the time that you want the song to run at, the speed, and that open E string ringing all the time. And when you pick this stuff, pick it hard. When you play everything, you should try to pick the string as hard as you can without picking it out of tune. And that applies to every kind of music. Guitars sound better when they're banged on a little bit more. If you play that stuff really light, it doesn't have any attitude in it. If you bang, hold your pick real tight and make the string move out of the pick's way. Don't use a pick that's real flimsy, or you'll never be able to get any volume out of the string. And don't be afraid to let chords ring longer. If you keep that tempo in your head, after you practice this for a while, you'll be able to move out of the exact time segments that are set up when you hear 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And if you keep playing the chords 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, the tempo will get real monotonous, or the line will get real monotonous. If you want to keep it more interesting, try to put those chords at some point in between those counts, or make them totally out of time, as long as at some point you can come back on the 1 and be in time again. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. Play those really like you're wavering and you don't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, then be glad with it. As long as when you come back to the E chord or the 1 chord, you come back at it like you know where it is. And when you come back to it, start that clock running in your head immediately again, so that you can go back into it. If you feel yourself getting lost, go back to the 1 and start the count over again. But always try to remember that if you're playing with the drummer, he's not going to know how you're going to correct your mistake. What he's going to do is to consistently play the groove for as long as he's supposed to play it. So it's up to you to work around your own mistakes. If you blow a note or blow a chord in your head, remember remember the next chord that you should be going to, and go to that chord when you're supposed to be going to it. Don't stop and go, I made a mistake. If you're playing in front of people, usually the only time they notice a mistake is when you make a deal about it. If you can recover yourself from those errors, you'll tend to feel better about your playing too, and you won't, from one mistake, you won't keep making more mistakes because you're embarrassed about it or something like that, because most people won't even notice. I want to talk a little bit more about those squawks on the higher strings. We talked about hanging that skin on your thumb over to play those lower notes. To get those squawking things. Getting them on the higher strings is sometimes a little more difficult because they're thinner strings. You just have to just barely touch the string with the skin of your finger. And what you're doing when you do that is you're playing a harmonic. When you pick a string, what you're hearing is the string vibrating from the nut to the tailpiece. When you fret a note, what you're hearing is the string vibrating from the tailpiece to the fret that you're fretting on. This length of the string isn't involved anymore. If you just very, very lightly touch the string, you'll get what are called harmonics. And harmonics are a result of the string vibrating and you touching the string in a certain spot and breaking the string up into a certain number of equal lengths. And the harmonics will be stronger at certain frets. The harmonic at the 12th fret is the strongest one and the easiest one to get. So when you're practicing getting harmonics, try them at the 12th fret. And the 12th fret is exactly half the distance between the nut and the tailpiece. Exactly half the distance between the nut and the 12th fret is the 5th fret. And so you'll be able to get them at the 5th fret as well. And a third of the distance of the neck is from the 1st fret to the 7th fret. You'll be able to get them at the 7th fret, and the 5th, and the 12th. And they're all different notes. And the strange thing about them is that they work backwards to the way a plucked string works. As you move toward the tailpiece on a plucked string, the notes get higher. As you work toward the tailpiece on a harmonic, the notes get lower. So it makes it a little confusing when if you're trying to figure out what somebody's playing on a record and they're playing harmonics, because it works totally backwards. Once you play with it, you'll get used to it. So when you hear, that's just a harmonic at the G, on the G string at the 5th fret. And you just touch it really lightly, not with the tip of your finger, because you're going to be building up a callus there. You want to touch it with the pad of your finger, where you still have a lot of sensitivity. And you just touch the string, you can just barely feel the string. And one of the toughest things about it is that you do want to pick the string hard. But you don't want to fret the note at all. You just want to touch the string, and it's hard to balance out banging the string with your right hand and just lightly touching it with your left hand. You tend to want to grab that neck real hard. So again, it's more of your left hand, right hand separation, that independent control, like the stuff we talked about last week, getting your right hand to do one thing while your left hand is doing another. And that, again, that just comes with practice. And if you keep working at these harmonics, you can start to hear that the harmonics are notes, and that you can actually find on the fingerboard where those notes exist. Like the notes at the 12th fret, the harmonics are the same as the fretted note at the 12th fret. And the notes at the 5th fret are an octave above the open string. So play around with those harmonics, and you'll eventually find out that certain times when you're called to play a note on the fingerboard, like that G right there, instead of playing that note, you can hit that harmonic, and it'll just play that note without having to have your finger on the fingerboard. When you're practicing these harmonics at the beginning, it's easier to get them with a distorted sound. And if you're using an electric guitar, make sure that your back pickup is on, not your front pickup. The front pickup happens to land at a point on the string where the harmonics are real hard for it to pick up. So put it on the back pickup. And when you're picking the harmonic, pick the note hard and land on the string underneath. Except for the high string, you'll have to just sweep across it. People tune their guitars like this. A lot of classical players use it. It's real belly sounding. And at the same time, it's real dirty sounding. You can get lots of different sounds out of it by banging the guitar real hard or shaking the neck. You can change the pitch of it. And you can get that fluttery sound if you have a tailpiece that has a whammy bar for it. What you're doing when you do a pick harmonic, which is where you fret a note and you make it scream like that, is that instead of touching the string with your left hand and picking the note, you're picking the note with the pick and then touching the string with your right thumb, so that it's just kind of automatic. And you can get these harmonics if you pick at those spots on the string like that. And when you go up here, you can still get natural harmonics. Way off the fretboard. And those are the harmonics that you're playing when you do pick harmonics, or squawks, or squeaks, or whatever they're called. So what's going to change is the pitch of the note that's going to sing. You can keep the same note fretted with your left hand and get a lot of different pitches out of the string by just the position that you play. And it takes a while to get used to being able to just automatically grab a note and having it squawk like that. But it's exactly the same theory behind it, about playing those natural harmonics, or about playing artificial or pick harmonics. And guys will do things like pick a pick harmonic and bend the note up, and then kill the note with your right hand by just dropping it down. People also do things like picking an open string and taking their right finger and touching a harmonic. There's a lot of different sounds, especially when the amp's distorted, that you can get out of it just by trying weird sort of things like that. And harmonics are real interesting in the sense that their tone is very pure and they sustain for a long time. If you play a note like that, it'll sing for a long time and you don't have to have your hand on the fingerboard or anything. And they're a real good way to get feedback out of your amp too. If you pick a note like that, you can get the guitar to feedback with the amplifier and the note will just basically sustain infinitely. So there's some fun stuff for you to play around with. As far as practicing this week, have a look at taking those chords, the 5th chord, the 4th chord, and just playing them sort of in a random order. When you're not playing one of those chords, keep that low E string droning. And these are just rules, you know, or they're just suggestions, they're not rules. Different players do it differently. Lots of heavy metal guys don't keep that low E string going, but it's just some stuff for you to work with. If you want to see some of this stuff written out on paper, send me a self-addressed stamped envelope to the address at the end of the program, and mail it to me at the school here, and I'll send you out these lessons, and you can have some paper in front of you to look at them, and there's chord diagrams, and I basically just wrote out what I've said today, except I won't repeat myself on paper. So keep working on it and try to keep the volume down, or you'll drive everyone nuts. And have a good week, and I'll see you in 7 days.